Hey, Stephen Young here doing the Junkyard Crawl at Burniston Auto Wrecking in Burniston, Massachusetts. And this 1966 Chevrolet Impala Sports Coupe reminds us of the great old days when full-size Chevys like this accounted for 2/3 of all new Chevrolet sales. In fact, of 2.1 million Chevys sold in 1966, about 1.5 million were full-size models like this. Now, of course, these encompass the Bel Air, the Biscayne, Impala, Caprice, Super Sport. So there's several models to choose from, but they all rode on the same 119-inch long wheelbase. But to me, one of the coolest ones of all is the Sport Coupe Fastback, which arrived in 1965. Now, you gotta remember that fastback styling wasn't new in the 60s. It was rediscovered by Detroit. Around 1949, 50, 51, fastback styling was a big deal in Detroit, torpedo backs on Chevys and Cadillacs, but it kind of went away as you get into the mid-50s. Well, it came back in 64 with the Barracuda, the Mustang 2+2, and in 65, the full-size Chevrolet Sport Coupes. Now this one is a 66, the second year, but remember 1964 was the final year for X-frames. 65 brought the perimeter frame underneath these things, and at the back of this we see the 11-inch drum brakes, which were standard equipment on the back of all full-size Chevys, and there's the coil spring right there, which came along for 1958. Before 58, Chevys had leaf springs in the back. So Chevrolet really evolved a lot from 1955 to 1966 when this car was made. Now here's the thing, a lot of folks compare these to the Dodge Charger and the AMC Marlin, but there's a big difference. The Marlin actually rides on about a 112-inch wheelbase, the Charger on a 117-inch wheelbase. These are a full 119. This is a full-size car. Those are intermediates. Quite a different thing. But you notice one thing about this, all fastbacks tend to cook the backseat occupants. And look at the package shelf in there. It's burnt like a mummy, just cooked out from years of sun, crisping that cardboard and vinyl factory surface into what you see there. It looks like a fire zone. But again, you know, that's the beauty and problem of a fastback, the heat, the cook factor, but they're great looking cars. Inside this one here is the standard bench seat. And this one has the Power Glide automatic transmission, which was $199 more than the base 3-speed manual. 4-speed was possible in most Chevys. That would have been a $188. So believe it or not, you actually paid $11 more for the non-privilege of the 2-speed Power Glide versus the 4 on the floor. But check this out, another $27 or $226 would have gotten you the 3-speed Turbo 400 for the first time in 1966 on V8 Chevys, but not seen here. But it's kind of cool. Let's take a look inside the glove compartment here, and there's something kind of neat. I love the way these are really just all metal, but these, here's the tire inflation instructions there, that sticker, that's factory stuff, installed on an angle quickly by some worker. But these 3 circular indentations right there, they do 2 things. They stiffen the panel. If that was just a regular flat thing with oil can, but speaking of cans, this will take 3 cans of soda or your favorite beverage at the drive-in movie. So it's kind of an interesting early cup holder before the cup holder became a thing in vehicles. Now here is Motor Trend magazine right here, 1965, late 65, previewing the all-new 66s. And as they do now, Motor Trend will have a buyer's guide. And here is the page on Chevrolet. And at the top, we see the big 4-door hardtop, no pillar on that one. In the middle, the wood grain station wagon. At the bottom, or the middle there, that's a Caprice with the formal roof line. That was the executive special. And at the very bottom, there's the Impala Super Sport convertible. And again, these were the backbone. Chevrolet sold, again, about 1.4 million full-size Chevys in 1966. But here's the thing, 1966 was the one year in the decade of the 60s that Ford outsold Chevrolet. It usually goes the other way around. And Chevrolet is, of course, Chevrolet USA 1, because they sell number 1. Well, in 66, Ford sold about 640,000 Mustangs, which put them ahead of Chevrolet for that one year, 1966. So that's the story on the fastback styling. Now this is something kind of cool I love on these big Chevys, is the way the vent window operates. Most cars, a little latch, you open it like this. Well, here you have a little turn crank, and you just turn this, and you can dial in the exact amount of window and wind that pleases you. Kind of a cool thing, you know, I like that. And this is seen on Impalas, and I think certain Bel Airs. I don't think the Biscayne would have this. But with that said, what a nice little touch. Moving forward, here's the Impala logo with the running gazelle or Impala, 1958 first year for that. And of course in 58 the Impala was strictly a two-door hardtop, a custom model with a shorter greenhouse, a lower greenhouse than a lesser Chevrolet Biscayne or whatever. But the Impala eventually liquefied or watered down, if you will, into an all brand or all model type wagons, etc., like we just saw. So by 66 it wasn't totally special, but this one does have a V8 emblem on the fender. We see it right here. There's no numbers above. If you see a 327 up above that, of course, that's a 327. But this V tells us we're looking at the 283, which is the base V8. And here it is under the air cleaner, 2-barrel carburetor. Looks like a little mouse nest happening inside of there. And let's remember too, the 283 arrived in 1957, an outgrowth of the 265, and it was a big deal in 58 when it came out. But by 1966, it was a ho-hum bread and butter car. But here's something interesting. Chevrolet had a problem with motor mounts and the mechanical linkage for the carburetor going over center and runaway cars. Well, they remedied it with this right here. This cable was a factory recall item. This basically contains engine roll. That is something that was installed generally at the dealer, and that's something that's not a hot rod piece. That was there to help control engine roll due to a recall campaign from Chevrolet. Kind of rare to see these things still in place. But again, this is the 283, the base V8. There's a 283 4-barrel, or of course the 327 2-barrel, 327 4-barrel, and then the 396, and the 427 in the first year, 1967, or 66, excuse me. We also see on this one here, you have the original T3 headlights on this side. And now T3 headlights were made by the Guide Lamp company, which is a subsidiary of General Motors. And you can see here the word Guide down the bottom. In fact, that's the manufacturer. It has nothing to do with aiming it, but what does have everything to do with aiming it is the T3 name. Tilt 3 degrees down and to the right. That's how to properly aim these things. So T3 was the brand and also instructions on how to aim it. Kind of cool. T3s are made through 1972 and used to be very valuable, blown up or not. They're now being reproduced, but for a long time, folks would buy T3s and put them in their restored GTOs to replace the aftermarket lights as a way to get points at the car show. But here we have again the 11-inch drum brakes up on the front of this. Disc brakes arrived in 67, I believe, for full-size Chevys, but these 11-inch drums are pretty big. And something kind of interesting is for 1965, the Z16 SS396 Chevelle utilized 11-inch Impala drums, front and rear, and a 12-bolt rear axle. And it was the only Chevelle ever to have 11-inch drums. All other Chevelles, when drum brake equipped, had 9.5 inches from 1964 all the way up to 1972. But again, here we have the 11-inch drums. I was puzzled, why didn't Chevrolet utilize these 11-inch drums on the SS396 of 66, 7, 8, 9, etc.? Don't know why, but the disc brakes in 67 on the SS were pretty good. But all of these big Impalas, being heavier, larger cars, came with the 11-inch drums. So that's the story of the 1966 Chevrolet Sport Coupe from the days when full-size Chevys were as popular as crossovers and SUVs are now. And these were a huge profit center for General Motors and really helped to keep the lights on. But again, 1966 was the one year that Chevrolet was not #1. They would return to prominence in 1967 all the way through 1970. But again, 66, thanks to the Ford Mustang, Chevy fell behind for 1 year, but they made up for it. Well, that's the story of this car. To see more, well, log on to the Steve Maggs YouTube site and, of course, subscribe and stick around for more from Bernardson Auto Wrecking.